Hi, Will from Music Tech here at the AES convention in New York with Mike Henderson from iZotope. Mike, how are you doing?
Very good, how are you?
Very well, thanks, yes. And we're looking at iZotope 9. iZotope 9, what's the story here?
So Ozone 9 is our new baby. It's just released and it's our mastering software. So with Ozone 9, we're building on a 17-year legacy in mastering. We have all new real-time source separation, never before seen processing for low end, and all kinds of new tools to help you balance your mix and new visualizations to keep you inspired and creative.
I understand there's also a little bit of RX magic in there.
Absolutely. So we have artificial intelligence now built into our master rebalance module. So really cool stuff, and I'm going to show you how it works.
Let's jump in, shall we?
All right. So the first thing I'll show you about Ozone is that it's now resizable. This is the standalone version of Ozone, but we also have component versions of all of our modules. So I'm going to open up our window here, this nice big screen. So the first module I'm going to show you is Master Rebalance. So Master Rebalance is using source separation, so I can actually adjust the mix of my vocals, bass, or drums without having the multi-tracks of the stereo mix. So first I'm going to select vocals, and I'm going to show you how I can adjust the gain of the vocals in this song.
If you think I'm gonna leave that golden girl alone all night.
So now you can see I just brought up the vocals, but not only did it bring up the lead vocals, it's also bringing up the background vocals, so it's kind of like having a volume for a bus that doesn't even exist.
So you can do Vox up, Vox down versions post-mix?
Yeah, so if a client gives you a track and the vocals are too loud, you could literally just bring the vocals down.
That's, okay. And how are you doing that?
So it's using machine learning. We've trained our neural nets to identify what is vocals, what is bass, what is drums by feeding thousands of audio samples through neural nets.
Right, okay.
And so you can bring up any one of these elements plus or minus 8 dB.
And you can do that with bass and drums as well, can you?
Yeah, so let's check it out. So I'm going to start with drums, and when I play the drums, notice how when I turn the drums down, you can still hear the bass kind of coming through, and vice versa with the bass. When I turn the bass down, you're going to hear the kick drum still kicking, so it's very intelligent. It can separate the two.
Okay.
All right, and so what you're looking at right now, you're seeing those two waveforms. You're seeing the blue waveform and the gray waveform in the background. So the blue waveform in the front is the instrument that I've selected, and then the gray waveform in the back is the track minus the source that we've selected. So it gives you a nice visual picture of the EQ spectrum of each element. So I'm going to switch to the bass, and now watch how the EQ spectrum just shifts. The fundamentals shift to the left.
She couldn't shake it, so I guess you might be right.
That's some voodoo business you're doing there. Okay, that's sounds like it'd be particularly useful for remixing work.
Yeah, we actually have RX, and we have a module in RX called Music Rebalance where you can fully attenuate or change the mix element. So if you want an acapella or an instrumental, you can do that in RX. Whereas Master Rebalance is more for subtle adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess having the bass there, that's particularly useful if somebody is mixed at home in a bedroom with less than ideal.
Well, yeah, and speaking of bass, so we have another new module called Low End Focus.
Okay.
So we know a lot of our users are maybe producing and mixing their music in not so ideal environments. Maybe they have their studio between the kitchen and the living room, or they're mixing in a closet, or And then you get to the car and you're like, this doesn't sound so great, the bass sounds out of whack. So low-end focus is a new module that's specifically tailored to low-end frequencies, and it's meant to clear up mud in your mix and also sort of separate the transient sustained information so you can give your bass more punch.
I'm highly skeptical of this. You're going to have to show us what exactly, how this sounds.
Let's do it. And this track actually has a bit of a broken bass line, so the bass is kind of low, so we're going to fix that. So I'll pull up my low-end focus module. So with low-end focus, you can choose the frequency range that you're affecting. You can even solo it. So I'm going to dial it in. Okay, so now we have a contrast parameter, and I always start with contrast. So contrast is like the contrast in a photo. So when I raise this up, it's actually going to separate the elements like kick and the bass. And if I lower this, it's going to kind of bring the elements such as kick and bass closer together.
And so what do you mean by that?
So contrast, so when I raise it up, you're going to get more separation from the kick and the bass. And then we have these two modes. Punchy is going to emphasize the transient information like kicks. So you're going to hear the kick is just coming through punchier. And if I change to smooth, you're going to hear the more sustained bass instruments coming through.
Okay.
You'll even hear the changes of the notes a lot more clearer.
Okay, well let's hear it.
You just have to hear it.
Yeah, okay.
So here's without low-end focus.
Did to believe? Well, I suppose it simply wasn't meant to be. Well, my mother told me first. She said things are getting bad, look out, they might be getting worse. And now all is full, a little short in front of you. Yeah, always full, a little short in front of, a little short in front of you. And if you still won't go, tell your sister that told her so. Tie the shirt into. If you think I'm gonna let.
And then we have this makeup gain if you want to make some gain adjustments to this module. So.
And is that using the same technology that's in the what we just saw?
So it's actually using a bit of excitation and spectral shaping, but
Okay.
specific to the low end. So
Right.
just
Okay.
cleaning up all the mud in the mix.
Okay, and so what else is new in this then, in Ozone 9?
So what else is new is we have Match EQ. So Match EQ used to be in the equalizer. It was kind of buried in the corner here, but we actually now made it its own module. So you can match the EQ profile of any reference track using 8,000 bands of equalization. So what I'm going to do here is load a reference track.
This sounds like it could be a dangerous thing to do.
Absolutely. So if you have a track that you really want to sound like, this will literally match the EQ profile. So I just loaded a reference track, and I can
Okay.
toggle between the reference track here.
And you can select a section of the track that's your reference.
Yeah, it actually dissects it into sections, so verse, chorus, and that is using another technology that we make for
Right, okay.
phrase detection. So now I'm in the Match EQ module. I'm going to capture the EQ curve of the reference track. So I usually just play this until the visualization stops moving down here. Maybe about 10 seconds. Okay, so now you can see we've captured this EQ profile of our reference track. Now I'm going to capture the EQ profile of the track we're working on.
We're gonna keep the lights down, keep the lights down, keep the lights down.
And now all I need to do is just raise the amount of the Match EQ module here, and you're going to hear how the EQ is just shaping into the EQ profile of my reference track.
But bearing in mind, this is a very different genre. This is a very different kind of track.
Completely different track.
What do you stand to gain from doing that?
Well, this is just a track that we have loaded on our computer, so to be honest, we're basically just going to try to match the EQ profile. If I had another rock track on here, I would of course load a rock track.
Okay, right.
You can see how it's completely shaping the EQ profile. This is kind of maybe a creative decision that I would make, but...
Okay, so it might not be for every project.
Yes.
Okay. So I understand there are vintage modules as well?
Yeah, so people love our vintage EQ, our vintage compressor. So what we've done is we've added a vintage mode to our master assistant. So I'll speak a little bit about the master assistant. So mastering can be kind of a daunting process to people. It's kind of like a dark art that a lot of people don't understand. So we're trying to help people to understand how to master, and using Master Assistant, it uses our assistive audio technology to give you a starting point for your master.
Okay.
So I'm going to clear out what we've just done here, start fresh. So the Master Assistant is right up here in the upper left. So now we have a modern and vintage mode with Master Assistant. So modern is more transparent, and vintage is going to be using our vintage modules. So then for our loudness profile, we can choose low, medium, or high intensity. And we can also load up a reference track. So if I wanted to master this track to sound like my favorite track, I could load it up. I'll choose manual, and then we can choose if we want to master for streaming or CD, and that will set the loudness, LUFS.
Okay.
I'll choose streaming. So I'm going to hit next, and Ozone's very friendly. It's asking us to kindly play some audio. We want to play from the loudest section of the track, and hit play. So right now it's analyzing our audio, figuring out what kind of genre it is. It's going to set up our compressor, our maximizer, our EQ, all in a matter of about 15 seconds, and this is using our vintage modules. Okay, so Master Assistant is done, and now it's just made a nice starting point for our master. Let's take a quick look at what it's done.
Okay.
So it set our EQ nodes, boosted a little of the mid-range, pulled down some of the mid-highs. It set a vintage EQ, and this is modeled after a Pultec style EQ. And it also has simultaneous low and high boost.
Of course, yeah.
It set our vintage compressor settings for us, our vintage limiter, and it set our maximizer, threshold, and all the parameters all up for us right away. So it's going to give us a lot more character and color with our sound.
Should we hear what it's actually done then?
Let's do it.
Should we do it before and after?
So we have a bypass button. If you want
Okay.
it before and after. All right, so one thing you might be thinking is, sure, it's louder, but is it better? So with that, we have this gain match function right here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So this will match the volume of our bypass and unbypassed signal.
And does it bring one down or does it bring one up? What
Yeah,
is
it's
it?
just matching the two of them.
But does it bring up the input or does it bring down the
Brings
output?
up the bypass. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So here's bypass.
If you think I'm gonna leave that golden girl up alone all night, I may have tricked myself. She could have shaken, so I guess you might be right.
Yeah, there's more weight there. Yeah.
It's more vibe, more color, a little bit of grit from that vintage.
Cool, okay.
Modules?
That's all the new features then, is it?
No, there's more other features. I mean, you notice that the visuals are much more detailed, and they just kind of encourage you to reach in and touch your audio. The EQ, we realized that our EQ is maybe a bit complicated looking for some people, so we've made it a much more simpler interface, where before you had all the bands, the Q and frequencies.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, so you can actually change the mode right here, whereas now our EQs are all HUD-based, so you can control the frequency, gain, and Q right within the HUD.
Very nice.
And
Okay.
we've added our imager as well. We've added the new Stereoize 2 mode, where you can blow up the stereo width of your track, and you can also do that band specific. So I can hit learn, it'll set the crossover points here. And now we can go band by band and just increase the stereo width or monoize it. Make the bass mono. So you can see the stereo width right within the imager.
That's very smart. Wow. Okay, Mike, how much is this? How much does this cost?
So Ozone is $4.99, but it's on sale right now for, I believe, $3.99 for until October 31st.
That's $3.99 USD, right?
$3.99 for Ozone Advanced. There's 3 modes. There's Advanced, Standard, and Elements.
Right, and out now.
And it's out now.
Cool, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate
Cheers.
it.